There are objects you carry every day without ever questioning the energy they carry back into your life. A simple handbag can be more than fashion. It can be a silent messenger of values, identity, and spiritual direction. Today we speak about awareness, not fear, awareness. Because what you choose to hold in your hands may slowly begin to hold your mind, your habits, and even your destiny. If you believe your walk with God requires intention, then listen carefully. Some brands are not just trends, they can become traps. You must understand that the human mind is not only influenced by what it consciously agrees with, it is also shaped by what it repeatedly sees. This is why symbols have always held power throughout history. Long before language was common, people communicated beliefs, fears, and values through signs and imagery. Even today, a simple shape, a logo, a color combination can trigger emotion without you realizing why. When you carry an object every day, when your eyes fall upon it again and again, it slowly becomes familiar, and what is familiar begins to feel acceptable. Many people choose handbags only because they are popular, luxurious, or admired by others. They do not pause to ask what the design represents, what message it promotes, or what kind of energy it reflects. Some patterns glorify rebellion without purpose. Some promote vanity as a lifestyle. Some celebrate darkness as an aesthetic. On the surface, it may look artistic, bold, or modern. But the deeper question is not whether something is fashionable. The deeper question is whether it is nourishing your spirit or quietly draining your clarity. The subconscious mind does not argue. It absorbs. When certain imagery becomes part of your daily routine, it begins to shape how you perceive the world. You may start valuing attention more than integrity. You may start chasing appearance more than authenticity. This does not happen overnight. It happens gradually, almost invisibly. Like water carving stone, repetition creates pathways in the mind. And once these pathways are formed, they influence decisions, reactions, and even relationships. A person who is spiritually aware learns to observe not only thoughts but also influences. You cannot always control what exists in society, but you can decide what you personally allow into your life. Awareness is not judgment. Awareness is responsibility. When you recognize that symbols carry meaning, you stop being a passive consumer and become an intentional chooser. This shift is powerful. It protects your peace because you are no longer being unconsciously led by trends or marketing narratives. There is also another dimension to this. When you carry something that does not align with your inner values, it creates subtle inner conflict. Part of you seeks truth and light, while another part becomes attached to validation from the outside world. This tension weakens confidence. True confidence comes when your outer expression matches your inner belief. Then there is harmony. Then there is strength. You are not being asked to fear objects or reject beauty. Beauty itself is not the enemy. The invitation is simply to look deeper, deeper. To question what you normalize, to become aware of what you repeatedly expose your mind to. Because spiritual growth is not only about grand decisions, it is also about small daily choices that shape who you are becoming. There is a subtle transformation that happens when a person begins to measure their worth through possessions. First, it feels harmless. You admire something beautiful, something expensive, something admired by many. You work hard, you reward yourself, and there is nothing wrong with appreciating quality or craftsmanship. But the danger begins when appreciation turns into dependence. When the object is no longer something you carry, it becomes something that carries your sense of value. Material culture today constantly whispers the same message. You are what you own. It suggests that recognition, admiration, and even respect can be purchased if you display the right symbols of status. Slowly, comparison enters the heart. You begin to notice what others have, how they are perceived, how they present themselves. Gratitude for what you already possess starts to weaken, replaced by a quiet restlessness, a feeling that you must keep acquiring to remain relevant. This is how attachment grows, not through force, but through repetition and social reinforcement. A spiritually grounded life calls for a different perspective. It asks you to remember that identity is not constructed from labels or logos. True identity is built from values, discipline, compassion, and faith. When your inner foundation is strong, you can enjoy material things without being defined by them. But when the foundation is weak, even a small object can become a source of pride, insecurity, or fear of loss. This is not about condemning wealth or success. It is about understanding the direction of your attachment. There is also a hidden exhaustion in constantly trying to maintain an image. If your confidence depends on how others perceive your lifestyle, you must continually invest energy into sustaining that perception. This creates pressure, financial pressure, emotional pressure, social pressure. Instead of living freely, you begin performing. Instead of expressing authenticity, you curate appearances. Over time, this performance distances you from your true self because you are no longer asking what is meaningful, you are asking what is impressive. Humility, which is a powerful spiritual strength, often fades in environments dominated by status competition, not because people intend to become arrogant, but because the system itself rewards visibility over sincerity. You may start to believe that being noticed is the same as being valued. Yet deep fulfillment does not come from being seen by many. It comes from being aligned within. When your actions, choices, and possessions reflect your faith and purpose, there is peace. You do not feel the need to prove yourself through external displays. To walk a conscious path means to examine your relationship with material things honestly. Do they serve your growth? Or do they subtly control your emotions? Can you enjoy them and let them go without disturbance? Or do they create anxiety about losing status or approval? These questions are not meant to create guilt, but clarity. Because clarity frees you from invisible chains. In the modern world, influence rarely announces itself loudly. It does not come to you and demand obedience. Instead, it appears attractive, successful, confident. You see it on screens, in magazines, on social media, feeds that you scroll through without thinking. A well-known face carries a certain brand, and suddenly that brand seems more desirable, more meaningful, almost necessary. You begin to associate ownership with belonging. This is how social pressure operates, not through force, but through suggestion. Many people do not realize how deeply they are affected by the desire to fit in. It is a very human instinct. From childhood, we learn that acceptance brings safety and rejection brings discomfort. So when trends are presented as symbols of success, the mind naturally moves toward imitation. You may tell yourself that you simply like the design or the quality, but if you observe carefully, you will notice another voice within. The voice that wonders how others will see you, how you will be perceived, whether you will finally feel enough. Celebrity culture amplifies this inner dialogue. It creates idealized lifestyles that appear effortless and glamorous. You see someone admired by millions, and without realizing it, you begin to connect their confidence, attention, and influence to the objects they display. The handbag becomes more than an accessory. It becomes a shortcut to a feeling. You hope that by carrying the same symbol, you may experience a similar sense of recognition. Yet this is often an illusion because the true source of their presence is not the object. It is the narrative built around them. When you constantly compare your reality to curated images, dissatisfaction grows. You begin to overlook the quiet blessings already present in your life. Contentment feels distant, replaced by the belief that fulfillment exists somewhere outside you, waiting to be purchased. This belief is powerful because it keeps you chasing. It keeps you striving for validation that never fully satisfies. The moment you reach one standard, another appears. The mind becomes restless, always scanning, always measuring. A conscious spiritual path invites you to step out of this cycle. It encourages you to ask whether your choices are guided by inner conviction or outer pressure. There is great strength in being able to admire beauty without needing to possess it. There is freedom in appreciating success without feeling diminished by someone else's spotlight. When you no longer define yourself through comparison, your decisions become clearer. You begin to choose based on alignment rather than approval. This does not mean isolating yourself from society or rejecting all trends. It means participating with awareness. It means recognizing when influence is attempting to shape your identity and gently reclaiming your autonomy. True confidence is quiet. It does not depend on being noticed. It grows from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and why you walk the path you have chosen. Every object you bring into your life carries a story that most people never pause to consider. It is easy to see only the finished product, the polished surface, the elegant packaging, the sense of prestige it represents. But behind every item, there is a chain of decisions, intentions, and actions that gave it form. When you begin to live more consciously, you naturally become curious about this hidden journey. You start to ask not only what something looks like, but what it stands upon. Production is not just a mechanical process. It is also an expression of values. Who created this product? Under what conditions did they work? What message does the company promote through its campaigns and public voice? These questions may feel uncomfortable at first because modern consumer culture encourages speed, convenience, and emotional impulse rather than reflection. Yet when you slow down and investigate, you often discover that not all success is built on compassion or integrity. Some systems thrive on exploitation, on artificial desires, on narratives that encourage vanity or division. When you knowingly or unknowingly support such systems, there can be a subtle disturbance within. Even if the mind tries to ignore it, the heart senses inconsistency. A person may speak about faith, kindness, and justice, yet continue to strengthen industries that contradict these principles. This does not make someone a bad person. It simply shows how easy it is to become disconnected from the consequences of our daily choices. Awareness reconnects you to responsibility. It transforms consumption into participation. There is also a deeper dimension to ethical awareness. When you choose products aligned with humane values, you are not only making a personal statement, you are contributing to a larger shift. Markets respond to collective behavior. When enough individuals decide that dignity matters more than image, that sincerity matters more than status, the culture begins to evolve. Small decisions accumulate into powerful change. What you buy becomes a quiet vote for the kind of world you wish to see. Some people worry that such mindfulness will make life restrictive or joyless. In reality, it often brings a surprising sense of liberation. When your choices are guided by clarity, you no longer feel trapped by endless options or pressured by fleeting trends. Simplicity becomes attractive because it reflects honesty. You begin to value durability over display, meaning over momentary excitement. This shift reduces inner conflict and strengthens self-respect because your actions are no longer fragmented from your beliefs. Spiritual consistency is not achieved through grand declarations alone. It is cultivated through everyday alignment. The bag you carry, the clothes you wear, the brands you endorse, all of these become extensions of your intention. They communicate silently, both to others and to your own subconscious. When this communication is rooted in awareness, it nourishes confidence rather than doubt. There is a quiet shift that happens in society when certain themes are repeated often enough. What once felt unusual slowly becomes familiar. What once raised questions begins to appear normal. This is not always a deliberate process. Sometimes it is simply the result of constant exposure. In fashion and design, darker aesthetics are often presented as bold creativity or rebellious expression. They attract attention because they challenge tradition and provoke emotion. Yet when such imagery becomes part of daily life, it can influence perception in ways that are rarely examined. The human mind adapts quickly. It is designed to survive by becoming comfortable with what it encounters frequently. If symbols of aggression, emptiness, or mockery of sacred values are encountered repeatedly, the initial resistance fades. Curiosity turns into tolerance, tolerance turns into acceptance, and acceptance can eventually turn into identification. This progression is subtle. Most people do not wake up one day and consciously decide to embrace negativity. Instead, they drift toward it through gradual normalization. In a spiritual journey, sensitivity to inner states becomes important. You begin to notice how environments affect your mood, how certain visuals disturb your peace, and how others uplift your focus. When darker themes dominate your surroundings, they can create a background tension that is difficult to explain. You may feel more restless, more cynical, more disconnected from gratitude. This does not mean that art or individuality must be suppressed. It means that discernment must guide appreciation. Not every expression that appears powerful is beneficial for your growth. Modern culture often celebrates shock value. The more extreme or unconventional something appears, the more visibility it gains. This creates a cycle where designers push boundaries not only for artistic exploration but also for attention. Consumers, in turn, begin to equate intensity with depth, yet depth is not always found in darkness. Sometimes true depth is found in simplicity, in harmony, in designs that reflect balance rather than conflict. When you choose what you wear or carry, you are choosing which energies accompany you throughout the day. Another important aspect is the influence such normalization can have on younger minds. Children and adolescents observe adults closely. They learn what is admirable by watching what is displayed with pride. When symbols that once carried cautionary meanings are presented as fashionable, the line between awareness and indifference becomes blurred. Spiritual responsibility includes being mindful of the silent messages we transmit through our preferences. Guidance is not only spoken, it is demonstrated. Protecting your inner clarity does not require fear or rigid rejection of the world. It requires presence. When you remain present, you can engage with creativity without losing grounding. You can admire artistry without surrendering discernment. This balance allows you to participate in society while still honoring your values. It is a form of strength that grows quietly, rooted in observation rather than reaction. After reflecting on symbols, influence, attachment, and awareness, it is important to return to the central truth. The purpose of this conversation is not to create fear. Fear narrows perception. Fear makes the mind reactive and uncertain. A conscious spiritual path is not built on anxiety about objects or trends. It is built on clarity. When you see clearly, you do not need to fight everything around you. You simply choose differently, and in that choice, you reclaim your freedom. Many people move through life feeling subtly pressured by expectations they never consciously accepted. They buy, display, and imitate because it feels easier than standing apart. Yet every time you act without alignment, a quiet fatigue grows within. It is the fatigue of living in contradiction, wanting peace but chasing approval, seeking purpose but being distracted by appearances. When you begin to choose light over fear, you release this inner tension. You stop reacting to the world and start responding with intention. Choosing light does not mean rejecting beauty, success, or material comfort. It means redefining your relationship with them. You can appreciate quality without worshipping status. You can enjoy fashion without letting it dictate your identity. You can participate in society without surrendering your discernment. This balanced approach transforms everyday decisions into expressions of self-respect. You no longer ask, "What will make me look important?" You begin to ask, "What reflects who I truly am?" There is also a powerful peace that arises when your outer life mirrors your inner convictions. When your possessions, habits, and values move in the same direction, you feel grounded. You do not need constant validation because your sense of worth is not outsourced to the opinions of others. This groundedness becomes a form of protection. Not a mystical shield, but a psychological and spiritual stability that keeps you centered even in environments full of noise and temptation. Faith, in its deepest sense, is not only expressed through rituals or words, it is revealed through consistency. Through the willingness to make small, conscious choices even when they go unnoticed. Through the courage to live simply in a culture that glorifies excess. Through the discipline to remain authentic in a world that rewards performance. Each time you choose alignment over impulse, you strengthen this inner foundation. Over time, this way of living transforms how you see everything. You become less attracted to what is loud and more sensitive to what is meaningful. You become less concerned with impressing others and more committed to understanding yourself. The fear of missing out fades because you recognize that true fulfillment cannot be purchased or displayed. It is cultivated through awareness, gratitude, and intention. The greatest freedom is not found in owning more. It is found in needing less to feel whole.